Brothers and sisters, friends of the light, today I want to share with you something that will shake your heart. Something that has been whispered in silence for decades, but rarely spoken out loud. A hidden prophecy connected to the visions of the Virgin Mary in Medjugorje, but now reaching across oceans, across generations, to our own homeland here in America. The message speaks of 3 days. Not ordinary days, but days when the world itself will stop. When the sun and moon will be veiled. When the familiar order of life in our towns and cities will be broken. 3 days of darkness. 3 days when the earth will tremble with silence and every family will be tested in their faith. And these days, brothers and sisters, are not far away in some abstract future. They have been marked. The 16th, the 17th, and the 18th. Can you imagine it? The lights of New York suddenly going out, skyscrapers swallowed in darkness. The quiet fields of Iowa covered in silence as the wind stops blowing. The deserts of Arizona under a sky blacker than midnight, with no stars above. The coastlines from California to Florida, wrapped in a strange night that will not end. These will be the days when every American home, every heart, will face the same question. Do I belong to the light, or will I surrender to the shadows? The Virgin has said over and over again, do not be afraid, prepare. These days are not sent as senseless punishment, but as purification. Just like the storms our nation has endured, hurricanes, wildfires, floods, these 3 days will be a storm of the Spirit cleansing the soul. And when the darkness comes, the only light will be the one we carry in prayer, in candles blessed by faith, in the Word of God opened on our tables. Friends, imagine families gathering in living rooms across the country, in Chicago apartments, in Texas farmhouses, in cabins up in the Rockies. Parents holding rosaries, children whispering Hail Marys, candles burning as signs of hope. Outside, silence will reign, but inside those homes will shine brighter than any lamp. Because the Virgin promised, where my children pray, there I am present. Type in the comments, Mary, be my light in the darkness. Don't be shy. Declare it boldly because your words may strengthen someone else in a moment of fear. The 3 days are not the end. They are a passage. Just as dawn follows the longest night, these days will prepare America and the world for a renewal, a rebirth. But the choice is ours, whether to live them with fear and despair or with faith and trust. Brothers and sisters, when we hear about the 3 days of darkness, it's easy to imagine only a physical blackout. Streets empty, power grids down, the sky covered in a strange black veil. But the Virgin's message from Medjugorje, and the echo we feel here in America, is that these days will not be just about the absence of sunlight. They will be a spiritual test, a mirror for every soul. Think about it. In the United States, we are so used to noise, to movement, to screens glowing 24/7. Our cities never truly sleep. Times Square is lit brighter at midnight than some towns at noon. But imagine if suddenly all of that vanished. No neon lights, no buzzing highways, no glowing phones, just silence, just darkness, just you and your heart. What would remain? What would rise to the surface of your soul? That's the core of this prophecy. When the familiar disappears, you will face yourself and God without filters. The Virgin has said, do not fear, but be prepared. She is not warning us to terrify us, but to invite us into purification. The 3 days are not the destruction of America or the end of the world. They are a refining fire, a reset of the heart. Picture this, a family in a suburban home in Ohio. Dad usually comes back tired from work, Mom busy with chores, kids glued to devices. But in those 3 days, everything changes. They sit together at the kitchen table, a single blessed candle burning, a Bible open to the Psalms. Voices shaky at first, but growing steady as they pray the rosary. Outside, neighbors scream or fall into panic, but inside that house, there is peace. Why? because when the lights of the world go out, the light of prayer shines brightest. Type in the comments, "My faith will be my lamp." Declare it. Because that's exactly what the Virgin calls us to prepare now, so that in the silence of those days, our faith will burn steady like an oil lamp that never runs out. Friends, the Virgin's messages remind us that these days will divide hearts. Some will curse the darkness, while others will discover God in it. Some will panic, running from house to house, while others will stay rooted, calm, praying with confidence. The difference will not be who has more supplies, more candles, or more plans. It will be who has faith. The darkness is not just a test, it is a threshold. Just as America has endured dark nights of history, wars, economic collapses, September 11th, yet always emerged, changed. So too, this will be a spiritual 9/11, a moment when nothing will ever be the same again. The Virgin is telling us now, be ready so that when it comes, you stand not with fear, but with courage. Across the nation, from New England chapels to Texas megachurches, from quiet farm towns in the Dakotas to bustling Los Angeles, prayer will become the dividing line. Homes with rosaries will glow like beacons. Families who kneel together will feel the protection of angels. And homes without faith will feel heavier than ever as despair seeps in through the cracks. Brothers and sisters, the Virgin is asking us to practice now, to unplug sometimes, to embrace silence, to light a candle and pray with our children, because those 3 days will reveal the truth. When the noise is gone, what remains in your soul? Is it faith or fear? Is it light or shadow? Ascribe. Write in the comments, "Mary, prepare my heart," because the act of writing it isn't just for you. It's a seed of faith for someone scrolling by, someone lost, someone afraid. Your witness could be the reason another person finds strength when the darkness comes. Brothers and sisters, friends of the light, whenever heaven speaks through the Virgin Mary, especially in Medjugorje, it is never to scare us, it is to prepare us. These 3 days of darkness will not be survived by panic or by wealth or by running away. They will be endured through faith, prayer, and unity at home. Think about how life looks right now in America. We have built routines of comfort, the hum of the refrigerator, the glow of the TV, the buzz of traffic on the highway, the constant signal of cell phones. But in the 3 days of darkness, all of that will vanish. Power grids will shut down, devices will go black, cities will fall into silence. The only refuge will be inside your home, turned into a small sanctuary. The Virgin's call is clear. Do not wait for the darkness to prepare. Begin now. What does that mean for us here in the US? Well, it means families must return to prayer, not once a week at church, not just when something bad happens, but daily. A rosary prayed in the living room, a Bible opened at the dining table, a candle lit with reverence. These small habits will become pillars of strength. Imagine your home in the Midwest on a quiet street in Indiana or Kansas. The outside world falls into fear, but your children hold rosaries. Your spouse reads Psalm 23, and you feel angels standing guard around your door. That is the preparation Mary is asking for. It also means we must embrace reconciliation. What good is it to stock up on candles if your family is filled with bitterness? What use is blessed water if your heart is dry with unforgiveness? Brothers and sisters, the Virgin calls us to forgive our spouses, our children, our neighbors, even ourselves. Because in the silence of those days, every unhealed wound will echo louder than thunder, but every word of forgiveness will shine brighter than the sun. Write in the comments, "My family will prepare in prayer." Proclaim it not just for yourself, but to inspire others who may still be asleep. Yes, there are physical preparations too. The Virgin has spoken about blessed candles, light that will not go out during the 3 days. Have one in your home, not as superstition, but as a sign of faith. When the darkness falls on New York or Dallas, on Los Angeles, or a farmhouse in Nebraska, that single candle will say, "We belong to the light." Keep holy water at hand, as well to bless your house, your children, your doorways. These are not just rituals, they are reminders that heaven is with us, but above all, the preparation is spiritual. Because what good is it if you have 100 candles but no prayer? What good is food if there is no faith? The true preparation is conversion. Going to confession, returning to church, reconciling with God in the Eucharist, making your home a place of prayer even before the darkness arrives. Brothers and sisters, picture this. The highways empty, the neighborhoods dark, the cities silent, and in the midst of it a small house in Ohio, a trailer in Alabama, an apartment in New York, glowing softly with candlelight filled with voices whispering, "Hail Marys." That is the vision of preparation, not fear, not panic, faith. This is why the Virgin urges us to practice now. Gather your family this very week. Light a candle in the evening. Turn off the screens and pray together. Teach your children to hold the rosary. Read the Psalms aloud. Learn to sit in silence together. Because when the darkness comes, these practices will not feel foreign. They will be your lifeline. Write in the comments, "Mary, prepare my home." Every comment is like a spark, and together sparks become fire. Brothers and sisters, America is a land of resilience. We've survived hurricanes on the Gulf Coast, blizzards in the north, tornadoes in the Midwest, wildfires in the West. But those are storms of nature. The 3 days will be a storm of the soul, and the preparation we need is not bottled water and generators, but prayer and forgiveness. Those are the supplies that will endure. Brothers and sisters, friends of the light, as the calendar crept closer to September 16th, a strange tension spread across the United States. News outlets buzzed with speculation, social media was flooded with debates, and even casual conversations at diners, schools, and workplaces turned to the same question. What if the prophecy is real? In small towns across the Midwest, prayer groups began to gather every evening. Farmers left their fields early, families closed their shops, neighbors carried folding chairs into living rooms to pray the rosary together. The sound of soft voices whispering Hail Marys began to rise like incense from Kansas to Iowa, from the Dakotas to Missouri. People who had not set foot in church for years returned, moved by a quiet conviction that something extraordinary was coming. Meanwhile, in cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, the reaction was mixed. Some faithful gathered in packed cathedrals, lighting candles and kneeling in silence. Others mocked them openly. Comedians on late-night shows joked about 3 days of lights out. Professors in universities dismissed it as hysteria. Politicians assured the public that there was nothing to fear and spoke of natural phenomena, offering complicated scientific jargon to calm the masses. Yet, even as they mocked, the unease in their eyes betrayed them. The Virgin's prophecy began to divide America, not by race, politics, or wealth, but by faith. On one side stood families preparing quietly, buying blessed candles, dusting off family Bibles, kneeling together at night. On the other side stood skeptics who laughed, scrolled past, and went about life as usual. The line grew sharper each day. Write in the comments, "My nation belongs to the light." Proclaim it with courage, because America is being tested not just by storms of weather, but by storms of the Spirit. As September wore on, strange signs began to unsettle even the most skeptical. Birds stopped singing. Some mornings, a stillness fell across neighborhoods, as though the very air was holding its breath. Farmers noticed their animals acting restless. Dogs howled at night without reason. Fishermen in New England spoke of tides behaving strangely, rising higher than usual, receding too fast. It felt as if creation itself was warning of something near. In churches across the South, pastors and priests preached to packed pews, warning their people to prepare. In Texas, families held outdoor vigils under the wide open sky, rosaries glowing in their hands. In the Appalachian Mountains, small communities huddled together, reading scripture by lantern light. Yet in Silicon Valley, in the skyscrapers of Wall Street, in the corridors of Washington, D.C., powerful voices scoffed, ridiculing the faithful as fearmongers. The division was not only public, it cut through families. In suburban homes, mothers pleaded with their children to pray while teenagers rolled their eyes and scrolled their phones. Husbands mocked their wives' candles and rosaries, while wives whispered prayers for their husbands' conversion. Thanksgiving tables turned tense as relatives argued, faith on one side, ridicule on the other. It was a mirror of America's soul. The prophecy forced everyone to choose, even within their own homes. Brothers and sisters, the Virgin had said in Medjugorje, the time will come when every person must decide. Neutrality will no longer exist. That time had arrived. America itself was the stage of a great separation. Not red or blue states, not north or south, but light and darkness. As September 16th drew near, news anchors spoke nervously, balancing between skepticism and fear. Unusual celestial alignments were reported. Scientists warned of geomagnetic disturbances, but ordinary Americans knew this was no natural fluke. A mother in Florida lit a candle. A farmer in Nebraska whispered a prayer in his barn. A trucker on the highway across Route 66 clutched a rosary on his dashboard. Faith was quietly taking root everywhere. Write in the comments, "Mary, America is yours." Every declaration strengthens the shield of faith over this land. And so, the stage was set. The countdown to the 16th had begun. Some homes were ready, cleaned by confession, filled with prayer, armed with faith. Others laughed, ridiculed, and ignored. The air grew heavy, the skies dimmed, and across the nation hearts beat faster, sensing the approach of something that could no longer be stopped. Brothers and sisters, friends of the light, the day finally came. September 16th dawned across America, but it was not a normal morning. From the eastern seaboard to the Pacific coast, from the pine forests of Maine to the deserts of Arizona, people woke with a strange sense that something in the air had shifted. The sunrise was dim, as if a veil hung across the horizon. Birds that normally filled the morning with song were silent. In neighborhoods across the Midwest, people stood on porches with coffee mugs in hand, staring at a sky that looked pale and metallic. Farmers in Kansas noticed their cattle restless, pacing instead of grazing. In cities like New York and Chicago, commuters whispered that the light of day seemed weaker, the streets quieter, as though the world itself was holding its breath. It was the first day of the prophecy. Some families gathered in prayer, right away, in living rooms from Texas ranch houses to small apartments in Brooklyn. Candles were lit, and rosaries began. Mothers pulled children close, fathers bowed their heads. A peace filled those homes, though outside tension thickened. Others mocked and went about life. "See, nothing happened," they said as the morning passed. But deep inside, unease gnawed at their hearts. Because even if nothing dramatic had struck yet, everyone could feel the difference. The atmosphere was heavy, time seemed slower, the silence more profound. Write in the comments, "Mary, give us peace on the first day." Declare it boldly because your prayer lifts the fear of many. By noon, signs became harder to ignore. Power flickered in major cities. In Los Angeles, entire blocks lost electricity for minutes before it returned. In the suburbs of Atlanta, stoplights failed one after another. Newscasters on television tried to calm the public, but their own voices trembled as they reported unusual disruptions in the grid. As night approached, the unease deepened. In New England, fishermen reported that the tides behaved strangely, rising higher than normal. In the Great Plains, the wind suddenly stopped, leaving the prairies eerily still. In the southwest, a blood-red hue stretched across the desert sky as the sun went down. America felt itself sliding into a silence it had never known before, and then darkness fell. Not the gentle, familiar night, but a heavier kind. Houses without prayer grew restless. People knocked on neighbors' doors asking what to do. Some ran to stores, but shelves were already empty. Others sat in living rooms with TVs dead, phones without service, and no idea how to fill the void. But in homes prepared, something different happened. A single candle flickered in the living room. Families knelt, praying the rosary. The Bible lay open to the Psalms. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And as those words were spoken, peace flooded those homes. In the cities, panic rose. Sirens wailed as police tried to calm crowds. In rural towns, silence spread deeper as lights failed across the horizon, and everywhere the same realization took root. The prophecy had begun. Brothers and sisters, the Virgin had warned, do not look outside. Do not open your doors. Pray, and I will be with you. On that first night, those who obeyed felt her presence. Many testified later that they sensed Mary's mantle around their homes, like a shield of invisible light. Those who ignored the call found only confusion, anxiety, and fear. September 16th was not yet the full plunge into darkness. It was the threshold, a day when America felt heaven's hand upon it, urging every heart to choose. Faith or fear, light or shadow, prayer or panic. Write in the comments, my faith is stronger than fear. Brothers and sisters, friends of the light. When September 17th dawned, the United States awoke to a silence that was no longer natural. The sun did not rise as usual. Instead, the sky hung heavy, covered by a veil so dense that not even a sliver of light could pierce through. By mid-morning, cities from coast to coast were blanketed in absolute darkness. It was unlike any blackout we had ever known. This wasn't the grid shutting down. This wasn't a storm knocking out power lines. This was the sky itself, withholding its light. The skyscrapers of Manhattan stood like dark giants against a pitch-black sky. The wheat fields of Kansas stretched into nothingness. The deserts of Nevada, usually burning under the sun, were swallowed by an endless night. America was in the grip of the prophecy. People panicked. In Los Angeles, crowds filled the streets, lighting matches, shouting, crying. In Houston, cars piled up on highways as drivers lost courage to keep going in the suffocating dark. In Chicago, grocery stores were broken into, shelves emptied by desperate hands. Fear moved faster than reason, and without faith, people crumbled. But in homes of prayer, the story was different. A candle burned steadily, casting a warm circle of light in living rooms from Pennsylvania to Texas. Families knelt together, holding rosaries, whispering prayers with trembling but faithful voices. In those homes, the Virgin's promise was fulfilled. Where my children pray, there I am present. They felt her mantle wrap around them like invisible armor. Write in the comments, Mary, cover my family with your mantle. Proclaim it because your faith is stronger than fear. The darkness, however, was more than physical. Soon, whispers began outside the doors. Some families reported hearing the voices of loved ones, dead relatives, neighbors, even children, calling them by name, begging them to open the door. But the Virgin had warned, do not look out, do not open. Those who obeyed remained safe. Those who gave in found only despair. In rural America, farmers heard pounding on barn doors, shadows moving through their fields. In cities, apartment dwellers swore they saw figures pressing against their windows. It was the great deception of the enemy, trying to lure the faithful away from their shelter of prayer. But the Virgin's voice echoed in their hearts. Stay inside. Stay in prayer. Trust me. By the second day, the weight of the darkness pressed heavily. Air felt thicker. Clocks seemed meaningless. Some lost sense of time entirely. But in the silence, miracles happened. In Nashville, a family prayed the rosary for hours. and later testified that angelic voices joined their prayers. In Colorado, a small prayer group felt an unexplainable warmth in the room, as though Mary herself stood among them. In Boston, children said they saw St. Michael with his blazing sword standing guard outside their window. Brothers and sisters, the battle between light and shadow was no longer invisible. It was felt. It was seen. It was real. The enemy tried to sow fear. But every Hail Mary was like a sword, cutting through the darkness. Every psalm read aloud was like fire against the cold night. Every family united in prayer was a fortress. Outside, the world spiraled further into chaos. People without faith tried to flee, but where could they run? Planes sat motionless on tarmacs, powerless. Ships drifted in harbors with no guiding light. Highways were littered with abandoned cars. America, a land built on speed and noise, was paralyzed in a silence so deep it echoed in the soul. But inside the homes of the faithful, something extraordinary happened. Fear turned into peace. Families who had never prayed together before found themselves clinging to one another, whispering prayers they hadn't said in decades. Children who once resisted bedtime prayers now cried out for their rosaries. The Virgin's mantle stretched across America, one home at a time, wherever hearts chose faith over fear. Write in the comments, "My house belongs to the light." Say it as a shield, as a testimony, as a declaration. And then, as the second night of darkness settled in, a new sound broke the silence, not voices of fear, but the roar of battle in the spirit. Across the nation, countless souls testified later that they heard a cry in their hearts, strong and thunderous, "Who is like God?" It was the voice of St. Michael, the archangel, rallying heaven's army. Families repeated it aloud, "Who is like God? No one but him." And with each repetition, shadows fled. America had entered the climax. The trial of faith was at its sharpest point. Fear was everywhere. Deception lurked at every door, but so too was grace. And as September 17th closed in its heavy veil, the world stood trembling between two choices: surrender to despair or hold on to the Virgin's light. Brothers and sisters, friends of the light, September 18th arrived, and with it, the third and final day of darkness. By now, America was weary. Families had endured 2 nights without sun, without stars, without the comfort of normal life. Anxiety weighed heavy. Exhaustion gnawed at minds and bodies. The silence outside was thicker than ever, broken only by the occasional sound of pounding on doors or whispers calling names. But inside homes of prayer, the faithful pressed on. Candles still flickered. Rosaries still rolled through trembling fingers. Bibles still lay open on tables. Fathers prayed aloud for their children. Mothers whispered encouragement. Children who had once resisted prayer now clung to it as their lifeline. The Virgin's mantle still covered those homes, and though the world outside was dark, these families were glowing fortresses of light. In New York, where skyscrapers had become silent towers of shadow, families in high-rise apartments testified later that they felt warmth and light filling their small living rooms as they prayed. In the heart of Texas, ranchers and their families knelt in barns and kitchens, singing hymns to keep fear away. In the suburbs of California, candles burned in windows, a signal to neighbors that someone inside still believed, still prayed, still trusted. Write in the comments, "Mary, give us strength on the last day." Because these words are not just words. They are shields of faith against despair. On this final day, the enemy fought hardest. Voices outside grew more desperate, more deceptive. Families heard cries mimicking loved ones, pleading to be let inside. Others saw shadows pressing harder against windows, scratching at doors. Some even swore they heard mocking laughter. The temptation to break the Virgin's command and look outside was overwhelming. But those who obeyed, those who stayed in prayer, found peace beyond explanation. By afternoon, the weight of the darkness grew unbearable. Many felt as though time itself had stopped. Without clocks, without sunlight, without movement, hours stretched like endless tunnels. But in those tunnels of silence, miracles bloomed. Families reported seeing faint golden lights flicker in their rooms like fireflies of heaven. Children spoke of angels whispering, "It will soon be over." And countless hearts testified that they felt the Virgin's presence more clearly than ever, as though she was sitting beside them, holding their hands. Brothers and sisters, as night fell on September 18th, a shift began. It was subtle at first, a slight thinning of the oppressive black sky, a faint glow at the edges of the horizon. Families who prayed noticed their candles burned brighter, though no more wax was consumed. Homes filled with a gentle warmth and hope rose like a tide. For the first time in 3 days, people felt not only endurance, but expectation. In Boston, families who had prayed non-stop heard church bells begin to ring without human hands pulling the ropes. In Louisiana, prayer groups swore they saw the silhouette of St. Michael in the sky, sword lifted high. In the Midwest, entire neighborhoods erupted in tears as they felt the heaviness lift, replaced by a peace so profound it brought everyone to their knees. Write in the comments, "The dawn is coming," because faith speaks of light even before the first rays appear. Then, in the early hours of September 19th, the breakthrough came. A thin golden line pierced the black veil of the sky. At first faint, like the edge of a dream, but growing brighter, wider, stronger. Birds that had been silent for 3 days began to sing again. Dogs barked joyfully, cattle lowed with relief, and across America tears flowed as people realized the prophecy was ending. When the first full rays of sunlight spilled across the land, it was not just light on the horizon, it was light in the heart. Families hugged, neighbors wept together, strangers embraced in the streets. The Virgin had kept her promise. Those who prayed had survived. Those who trusted had been purified. America was not the same. The darkness had changed her forever. Some hearts were hardened, still mocking even in the face of miracles. But millions more were awakened, converted, renewed. Churches filled, confession lines stretched out the doors, prayer groups multiplied. The nation had been shaken. But in that shaking, faith was born anew. Brothers and sisters, September 18th was the darkest of days, but also the threshold to the brightest of dawns. The Virgin's words echoed in every heart. "Do not fear, I am with you. Where my children pray, there I am present." Brothers and sisters, friends of the light, when the morning of September 19th finally came, America opened its eyes to a land bathed in sunlight. The long night was over. Birds filled the skies with songs that hadn't been heard in 3 days. Rivers sparkled again. The breeze returned to the plains. The ocean waves rolled against the shore with renewed strength. The entire nation breathed a collective sigh of relief. But it was more than just nature coming back to life. It was hearts, souls, and spirits awakening after the greatest trial in living memory. For many, tears flowed as they stepped outside for the first time since September 16th. Parents hugged their children tighter. Couples held hands in silence. Elderly neighbors embraced with gratitude. Across small towns and big cities alike, from Portland, Maine to San Diego, California, people whispered the same words, "We made it." But those who had prayed knew it wasn't just survival. It was grace. It was the Virgin's mantle shielding them. The prayers whispered in living rooms, barns, and churches had carried them through. Churches were flooded that very morning. In New Orleans, bells rang non-stop as crowds filled the cathedral, falling to their knees. In Chicago, priests couldn't keep up with the lines of confessions stretching blocks down the street. In tiny chapels in Appalachia, people packed pews, crying, singing hymns, raising their hands in thanksgiving. The Virgin's prophecy had not only tested America, it had ignited a fire of faith unseen in generations. Write in the comments, "Thank you, Mary, for saving us." And let those words be your offering of gratitude, because gratitude multiplies blessings. And yet, not all hearts were changed. Some emerged from the darkness harder than before. Skeptics flooded television networks with explanations, calling the event a rare atmospheric blackout or a global anomaly. Politicians spoke of natural cycles. Scientists gave long, complicated theories that contradicted each other. But deep down, the people knew. No science could explain the whispers at the doors, the voices calling names, the way blessed candles alone had burned with steady light. Still, the division that had started before the prophecy now deepened. On one side, millions were converted, families restored, children praying again, communities united in ways not seen since the darkest days of World War II or 9/11. On the other side, prideful hearts mocked, denied, and worked harder to silence the faithful. America was awake, but split in two.